Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is John Gallagher from Raven, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast. Prepare to be shocked.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any pod catchers, like our Facebook page, or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
John Gallagher of Raven.
Yeah, they just got back from a U.S. tour over the late fall, in support of their 2020 release, Metal City.
Yeah.
Right now they're in the studio working on their new album.
I think they said they got about 25, 30 tracks.
Yeah, and they have to narrow them down.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that luxury.
I know.
Before we let you go for the night, for the evening, we want to pay tribute to Johnny Z. Johnny Z was the founder of Megaforce Records, and which Raven was signed to Megaforce Records. So John Gallagher was a great interview, and we want to give our condolences to anybody that worked with Johnny Z.
Yeah.
Great guy. And let's just get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. John, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Hey, John, it's going to be fun to talk to you tonight.
Good to be here, man. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, number one is thanks for staying up so late to do this interview with us.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, I dragged myself out of bed.
Fantastic. Well, recently, Raven just returned from a tour of the United States. The tour began in October 20th, and ended November 21st. Can you talk a little bit more touring the pandemic? How's that worked for you in the United States?
Well, it was awesome, and one of the great positive things was people were just so happy to come out and see a show. There was a lot of that. So, people wanted to come out and have a good time, basically, which was phenomenal, and they also wanted to spend a lot of money on merchandise, which is also phenomenal. We can't argue with that. But otherwise, pretty much most of the country was perfectly normal until we got to, California and Oregon and Washington State, where, I'm not get too political, but, there was a lot more COVID restrictions where really there weren't anywhere else, pretty much so. The one thing we did notice across the country is if you wanted to try and get a meal after 6 o'clock while you were on the road, you were out of luck. It's very weird. Your Denny's and your rest stops all just stopped serving food around 6 o'clock. It was really weird.
It is.
But gig-wise, it was great. We got to, play some of the most recent album, which came out during the pandemic, so we haven't been able to do that. So that was cool, and to pull out a few old songs we've never played in forever. And we went at it hard. It was 28 dates over 32 days.
Oh, fantastic!
Which is the way we like to do it. Just boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm. Well, very good. Raven has maintained such a strong following in the States. How do you compare touring the United States to, I guess, over in Europe?
It's like most things these days, the world gets a little smaller. So what was, widely differing, viewpoints have kind of homogenized a little bit. But still, the United States is the place to tour because it's more of a 24/7 society, Things have opened more, but definitely even back in the 90s, we'd be touring Europe and, there's another day off, another public holiday, Wednesday early closing for the shops and no shops open on Sunday. And there's still a lot of that going on. It's just just cultural things.
Oh, very good.
So that's if you're a band on the road and you've done your show and it's 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night and you're looking for let's go out and hang out. And, nope, that ain't happening. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But as far as audiences, I mean, more than ever, it's we have a Raven audience, so wherever we go, they're all nutcases, so that's great.
That's awesome. With 14 albums, how do you go about picking your set list for? You said you hadn't played some songs in a long time.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's obviously a handful of songs people kind of expect us to play, and don't get me wrong, we enjoy playing them, but we do, we're not an oldies act. We have been making, ballads, pushing the envelope music for, we continue to do that. As shown by the great reaction on our last record there. So we always want to play some new stuff, old stuff that people will know, and then pull out a few, off-the-wall choices or things that we've never done in forever. So on this tour, we started doing Extract the Action from the Stay Hard album, which is like a off-the-wall choice, but it's a fun song to play, and Tyrant of the Airways, which we'd never played live since 1985.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And it's just for ourselves, it's an awful lot of fun playing that. It's a great piece to play, and the reaction was phenomenal, And then playing a few new songs, The Power. What else were we doing? Metal City was going over great, and also doing Top of the Mountain, which was the first one we started playing live off the album, even before it came out.
Nice.
With Raven releasing Metal City in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, were you apprehensive releasing a new album during the COVID-19 lockdown, or how did it work for you and the rest of the band?
Well, the whole process of putting this album together was, we were the whole thing was when we got Mike on board, it was like, yeah, we want to do a new album and we don't want to take 5 years between albums like we did with the last one. And of course, events conspired against us, pretty much. So we were all set to have the album finished and out in 2019, and that didn't happen. And we bumped it forward to the beginning of 2020, and we had a tour all set up, and then the opening bands, one of them couldn't commit, and it was like, well, we'll just kick it back until later. Sorry, these beeps are my bandmates chasing me about other items. We'll put it back until later in 2020, and literally, like a week after we discussed this, the lockdown started to come down. And we just said, we've waited this long, to hell with it, we'll just put it out. Everything will be all right by then. But in a way, it worked out for us because, with the complete lack of any live shows and people were just hungry for music, a lot of people got to check it out and really liked it. So, it was we knew we had a great record, and when it would just have the songs written, by the time we went through the process of recording it and then getting it mixed and then working really hard on getting some cool artwork with it, we knew we had a killer package. And yeah, it's gratifying to have the reaction we got from it. Absolutely.
Well, fantastic. Jeff, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the album cover. It's a comic book cover, and it's got a throwback to your early days of kind of wearing the different gear. What's your process for picking an album cover or coming up with the ideas?
Well, you've got to have a good concept, a good idea. Otherwise, you're in trouble. We've had this before. The first album, I came up with a great concept, and, us buried in the equipment, Rock Until You Drop, all that, it looked great. And then the next one, Wiped Out, we had the idea for like a nuclear explosion on the cover, and the record company said, no way, we can't do that. That's in terrible taste. You've got 2 hours to come up with a cover. So I still remember me and Rob Hunter being locked in a room looking at each other going, what the hell are we going to do? And I ended up drawing, two of these flashes, and what the hell? Now it looks pretty cool. Now it would work.
Yeah.
But you've got to have that concept. Now we were working on a T-shirt idea, and Mike just said, well, why don't we just blow this out and do like a comic book for the album? So we, come up with this comic book thing. Let's make it look like one of the old Marvel or DC comics and put all the little insignias and stuff, and then have artwork for each song. And everyone started chipping in ideas. And the only difficult thing was trying to find artists that would work with us, as opposed to having a, inflated sense of ego and saying, no, what you need is this. And we're like, no, what we need is what we want.
Oh, very good. Well, can you talk a little bit more about, the writing and recording process for Metal City? Was it business as usual for you and the rest of the band as far as, we're going to stay true to the Raven sound, or how did it work out for you this time?
Well, I think we learned a lot from doing the Extermination record, as far as we really knuckled down and put extra work into the songs. We thought we'd done a good job on Walk Through Fire, but we wanted to really knuckle down and have the real all killer, no filler. Mm-hmm. Anything that was just like, well, that's okay. That wasn't going to make the grade at all. And we'd take a song and go, okay, what's wrong with it? Where can we make this better? Is there any fat we can cut out? Is there anything we can make better? Is this just a generic riff under the solo? Can we make it more interesting? So we deconstructed and built stuff up, and it worked really well for that. So we just took a lot of those lessons we learned from that even in the writing process. So I'd come up with an awful lot of songs for Metal City. I probably had 20, 25. And, Mark jumped in on, we had this weekend in Europe, Joe had his heart attack. We were doing some American dates, which is how we ended up hooking up with Mike. He did 3 of the dates, and we really got on great with him. And we said, we'll talk when we get back from Europe. And we did this European tour. We did a festival and then a tour, and we had like 3 days off in Brussels. And all we did is sit in this horrible hotel room and just like bang songs at each other, and came up with stuff like Human Race and, you know, It's Not So Easy and stuff like that, and Battle Scarred. You know, these were like a lot of Mark's ideas that we were bouncing around with. So we knew we had a great record. And then the magic ingredient was putting Mike Heller on drums on it, which just kicked it into a different dimension. But I mean, other than, like I say, taking the lessons we'd learned from the Extermination record and just, you know, really, you know, not... Sometimes when you write a song, it's just like, well, let's just follow it through and see where it goes. And, you know, you put something together, and sometimes those, you know, placeholders last a little longer than they should. Well, we kind of didn't go for the placeholders. It's kicked them out.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Well, you know, Raven's working on new material as we speak. What can our listeners expect? Do you have a time frame for a new album? What are we looking at here?
Well, hopefully, I mean, we were supposed to be doing an interesting cruise with Mr. Chris Jericho. It was a rock and wrestling thing that was going out in March, and they just cancelled it, or at least postponed it the next year. So that may be where, you know, like late March, April, get together in Los Angeles with Mr. Heller and in his studio and start banging some stuff out. We've got an awful lot of songs written, like maybe 25, 30, and I'm excited that they're great. It's kind of following in the vein where there's some really out there, crazy heavy stuff, fast, lots of parts, some great rock and roll songs. So it's got that, you know, the double-edged sword. It's the craziness with the melody, the chaos with the, you know, organization of songwriting, you know, like well put together songs. And, you know, we always leave like 20, 30% as far as the actual parts for when we're recording, and just go for it and see what happens. There's always an element of improvisation has to come into it, you know.
Sure.
Nice.
Oh, very good. Well, you know, as we talk about that, you have 25 songs written. Then you have to narrow it down to what the best 12 that you feel should fit on an album, 12, 13 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that certain songs are necessarily better than others, but certain songs will, you know, go better together. When we put together Metal City, we had all these songs, and it was like, well, let's sequence it. What would be a great song to start with? And we had 2 or 3. We go, well, The Power. Let's go with The Power. And where would you go from there? Well, let's have this song, you know, Top of the Mountain, because it's got its foot in the old and in the new. It was a real, you know, crossbreed type of thing. And then let's go crazy with, you know, what's the song? I'm forgetting myself now. Human Race, which is like, you know, off the scale, beat you to death type of thing. And you know, just make a journey. Old school. We still look at it as an album. You know, this whole thing of like having one song downloaded without knowing who played on it or anything is very alien to us. And basically to our fans too. They want a physical product. They want to hold it in their hands. They want to read about what was going on, and we want to take them on a journey from, you know, song to song all the way through. So we have to have that in our minds. So I'll have, you know, I'm looking at a list of songs that say, well, this one would be a great opener. This one could be a great opener. This one, not so much. So maybe we'll take song A, you know?
Yeah.
And just kind of list, well, it's like this list of songs or this list of songs or this list of songs. And, you know, we'll argue and listen to them and, you know, put playlists together and try and see even just the condition that they're in now, which are just home demos. And, you know, And of course, at this point, everyone's chipping in. Well, this should have an intro on it, or this part should be cut out, or maybe we could make this different here. But the basic songs are pretty much together.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what do you do with the songs you don't use? Do you throw? I can't remember who we were interviewing, but somebody they just threw them away, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Do you save them for a future project?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, take that song "Top of the Mountain." That'd been floating around for a long time in different forms, and when I was doing a month worth of writing session for Metal City, I just had these ideas that had been kicking around for a while. Some of them just like, oh, I know what's missing from that. It needs this.
Yeah.
And boom, you have the magic part. But other times you'll write a song in literally 5 minutes. It'll just flow. It's just stream of consciousness, and it works. Other times you got to work a little harder at it. Sometimes you just, you're not looking at it the right way.
Mm.
And these are things you can't control. So you just try to, you've probably heard people talking about, well, I don't really write. I'm a vessel, and it sometimes comes into my head from wherever, and I'm happy when it does. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, Sometimes you're more receptive to what's going on, and other times it's like, you've got a, tinfoil hat on. You need to take it off to let the radio frequencies get in,
Well, many bands will experiment with their sound. Raven has been a band that has stayed true to the metal roots. Do you ever feel tempted to kind of experiment and to kind of step out of that box a little bit? Or are you afraid that the fans would say, this is not Raven if we did that? How does it work for you?
Oh, we've already been there. I mean, geez, we've had people complain since the second album. You're always, you're never going to please everybody.
Right.
And we famously signed with Atlantic Records in the middle 80s, and we did we did 3 albums with them. The first one, I Still Stand By, is a great album. Stay Hard, it was a little more commercial. The Pack Is Back album was a lot more commercial, and we got a lot of heat for that.
Oh, man.
And when the record company flaked out on us, and we basically reassessed and said, if we're going to be in this business, we're just going to do what we want to do. It's fed up with trying to please other people. It's kind of how that was going. And we did Life's a Bitch, and basically, told the record company where to go, and stayed on our own course from that. So, everything we do is pretty instantly recognizable as us. I mean, Mark's guitar, my voice, right off the bat. We've always had iconic drummers, Rob Hunter, Joe Hasselwander, and now Mike Heller. So there's that. It's one foot kind of keeping your roots and showing where you are, and the other foot dabbling around, going here and there, doing different stuff. I mean, the last album, we're definitely pushing the envelope here and there. There's different stuff going on. So it's a bit of a balancing act. It's not like, oh, next album's going to be Jazz Odyssey,
Oh, very good. Well, speaking of past albums, The Pack Is Back is my favorite Raven album. Screaming Down the House is my favorite track from Raven, period. How have you evolved as a songwriter and a musician since that album was released?
Geez, I'm trying to think of... I mean, I wrote a lot of parts on that. I'm not sure how many songs I actually wrote on that. I started bringing out more songs, I think, probably after Rob left, which would be like, Nothing Exceeds, like Excess onwards. Because, I mean, Rob was a huge part of the band, not just image and playing. He's a great songwriter and musician. And it was very difficult at certain points to tell who wrote what. Oh, that's a great guitar if Rob wrote that. Oh, I love that bass part. Mark came up with that. That drum intro, that was one of Mark's ideas. And, we all threw everything into the pot. And that's one great thing about being a 3-piece band. There's no passengers. There's no fat, as it were. Everyone's got to contribute to make it work properly, you know. So you basically, you know, the key to being a good songwriter is just to keep writing songs, because not all of them are going to be great, but you'll every time you do it, it's like practicing your instrument. You know, if you don't keep practicing, you won't get any better, and you won't even keep up, you know, a certain level. You have to keep trying different stuff and trying a different way of looking at it. And, you know, you can get very set in certain chord progressions and certain ways of doing stuff, and some of that's style and some of it's just laziness, you know. So you have to cut the laziness part out.
Well, I guess maybe in regards to maybe the evolution of you as a musician and the rest of Raven, of what the band is now in comparison to what it was back in the early days, do you feel as though your playing style and even your songwriting has matured over the years, or do you feel like you're still that raw musician that you were way back then?
A bit of both. We definitely have that, you know, plug in and you're instantly still 15-year-old, seeing how loud it'll go and just letting it feedback and annoy the neighbours. You know, it's got to be in your blood. That's how this band will never be. You know, when you see some of these bands that you would term washed up, where the guitar starts getting a little cleaner and they play a little slower and the voices don't sound so good, you're never going to hear us being like that. We ever hear, you know, any one of us starts playing or sounding like that, they'll be thrown off a bridge very quickly. It's, you know, 24/7, 365, 110%. That's the only way to fly in every single aspect of what we do. And that includes having fun. It's not just serious nose to the grindstone. You got to enjoy it, you know. And we enjoy the hell out of, you know, just bashing out a couple of cool riffs. It's, you know, to a large degree, it's all about the riff. You got to have a cool riff. And a lot of people think all the riffs have been written, but they really haven't. I mean, it's incredible how you can get, you know, all the music you've ever heard comes with basically 12 notes. Yeah. And there's still combinations you can come up with and go, I know no one's done that before. And that's really, you know, those are the things that really inspire you, and you want those moments, you know, like, oh. And, you know, I've grown as a player. I challenged myself. I mean, during the pandemic, when it first started, I was like, I'm going to challenge myself to do a little bass part every day and put it up on the internet. So I did 365 in a row.
Oh, wow.
Every day. And it was like, whether it was just me improvising, you know, playing crazy feedback, tremolo on bass or whatever, or playing show tunes. Chim Chimley, all the chordal parts that work. You know, Tori Amos songs, whatever, Radiohead, anything, you know. Just, oh, that's a cool melody. Let's see if we can do something with it or come up with some parts. And it was a great challenge, and I learned a lot. You know, there was stuff I didn't know how to play, and I'm going to learn it. I'll force myself to come up with that, you know. And any time you learn something new like that, you take a little something away, and it's like, oh, there's a technique I never played with before, and maybe that'll inspire something, you know, more in the vein of the band. You never know.
Oh, so cool. Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, I was reading somewhere with the term athletic rock. What do you do today? What's your secret today to stay up and in shape for? Is it eating healthy or working out, or what do you do to be able to still, you know, hit it on stage like you did?
Nowhere near enough. It's usually attitude. I mean, the pandemic was good in one way. I did lose quite a bit of weight. From back in the 90s, I was, you know, part of the time I was working a desk job, doing international freight, and, you know, eating crap food and sitting down 8-10 hours a day is never good for you, you know. So, you know, but a lot of it is attitude. We go out there and, you know, the first day or two you'll be in traction. No word of a lie, because it's very hard to prepare for doing that other than just doing that. It's you could run up and down for miles, you could go in the gym. It's not the same. It really isn't.
Yeah.
There's a different physicality because a lot of sports and stuff, you've got to be loose, right? Mm-hmm. Like swimming, you don't tense up. You've got to be loose to make it work. Doing this, you tense up. Other than my hands, everything else is like screaming, So I've learned to not let my hands do that, but everything else is out there. And then you've got to pace yourself because you're singing. You've got to, you've got that physicality going on as well. So, and then you're projecting, you're playing ringmaster. So it's really doing three things at once,
Oh, fantastic. Well, rock and metal is no longer at the forefront of the pop culture. What will it take for rock and roll and metal to make it a return to what's popular in pop culture? What are your feelings on that?
It'll do what it's always done. It'll be how many years it'll take, and there'll be some young band that's doing a rehashed version, or they've got their own take on rock and metal and get popular, and hopefully that'll spark things up. I don't know. The current music scene is just garbage. I mean, when you were a kid, even the pop music was great.
It was.
You could listen back now and ABBA was genius, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, people who could actually write and sing and play, and now it's just people playing with laptops and auto-tune, and every song. Somebody put a thing on the internet. It was the top 10 from Spotify, and every song was a 4-chord song with vocoder or auto-tune on it. It was just like, oh God.
Yeah.
Made me want to smash the damn computer.
Yeah.
But then you'll hear Adele, and it's like, the voice of an angel, and it's just like 3 instruments, and it's, timeless.
It is.
So thank God there's still a place for real music, no matter what kind it is. You can always recognize quality,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I have one more question for you, then we'll leave you alone and let you go back to bed. So, the thing about rock and roll and metal, and I guess any respect under the rock and roll umbrella is, rock and roll used to have a mystery. And the dawning of the internet and social media has kind of taken the mystery out of rock and roll, metal, any other genre of music that goes under rock and roll. Do you miss the mystery of rock and roll, or do you like the accessibility? Because let's face it, if we didn't have the accessibility, we wouldn't be doing this with you right now. If I couldn't contact you through the internet,
No, it's there's a lot of bad things about the internet, but the accessibility and the ability to interact with our audience is brilliant. And for the fans, I'll tell you, I just saw a thing on the internet that came out like a couple of weeks ago. There was a 30 minutes of the Scorpions from 1977 playing live on a Swiss TV show that just came out with Uli Roth on guitar. These are things you'd kill for, and it's just appeared now. So those kind of things, so the fans can, get to see the historical stuff like that, where you could never get that. I remember the first time we went to Japan in 1995 and were taken to a video bootleg store, and it was like Aladdin's Cave. Every band you've ever heard of, oh yeah, here's a live concert. And of course now you've got that right in front of you on your phone if you want,
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that there are young kids. We play shows especially in Europe, South America, it's all young. Here in the States, you'll get like 3 generations. So there are young kids who are like, I don't like all this hip hop and nonsense. My dad was listening to music. I like that. What's this? And they'll delve back and they'll do their research. And there's just something about this music that really grabs a hold of you and never lets go,
When I was a kid at Christmas time, my parents would buy me, Hit Paraders and Circus Magazine and Spin and Rolling Stone, and they'd shove it in my stocking, and I would sit and read, these short stories about bands and what have you, and it was intriguing because you just get this little glimpse of this band, and that was all you were getting, and it was that mystery that kind of kept me captivated into rock and roll, and I guess that's the thing that kind of bums me out more than anything else is that everything is at the tips of your fingers. You don't have to wait for anything anymore. But on the hindsight of things,
but you do have to dig. You do have to dig for it.
Yeah.
It's not on the surface. It's just like it was before. Everything on the surface is garbage. You kind of have to dig. When I was a kid, there was a newspaper in England. There was a few of them. There was Melody Maker, the New Musical Express, which were basically garbage most of the time. And then there was Sounds, which had a lot more hard rock and metal in it. And it'd come out every week. Right? And I started getting this around late 72, 73 when I was a kid. And I knew all the bands. I knew half the songs, but I'd never heard any of them. It took an awful long time before I got to hear, Jethro Tull doing Thick as a Brick or Passion Play, or, some of the Deep Purple stuff, and just read about all these bands, David Bowie's last concert at Hammersmith Odeon. Wow, what? So you had that, and then whatever was on Top of the Pops on the TV, and there was maybe a rock show, a local rock show on the radio on like the weekend. And that was it. So a lot of stuff was word of mouth. People would say, hey, if you heard this, check this band. Oh, this band's cool, And, it would go around like that. Or, as you'd probably have experienced yourself, you'd go look at the records and go, this cover looks cool. I'll chance it. Let me, check this out.
Absolutely.
And quite often it was great.
It was great. Yeah, and for us, I know as I'm speaking for myself here, I'm not for Jeff, but I used to stay up late on Sunday nights and tune into the FM station that was hosting Bob Colburn's Rockline to tune into any little glimpse of stuff that you couldn't catch on the FM radio here locally. But I got to tell you, I miss the mystery. I love the accessibility because we can contact people like you to invite you to come on the podcast, but we're out of our allotted time. Yeah. Is there anything that we left off that you would like to promote or plug?
Just that we did, that's what was supposedly the first leg of a tour. We are regrouping, as it were, and hopefully we'll do the second leg, which will play a lot of places we didn't play the first leg a little later in the year.
Oh, very good.
We're chasing a different agent, put it that way. But we're looking forward to getting that together.
Oh, fantastic.
So, again, everyone out there, thank you for the support, as ever. And we will be working on a new record, and we'll be out to see you very soon.
Oh,
brilliant. No problem.
Fantastic.
You got it, man.
All right, John. We'll be contacting you about 3 weeks with the cleaned up version of all this, and then please share it to all your social media. Sound good?
Shall do, man.
All right,
Have
man.
a good one.
Hey, sleep good.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You can make your dreams come true, but you just can't do it here. Hey. Everybody eyes the gun and screams inside their head. Everybody bites their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine